from Pink Holly Bush Designs, and I'm here with another Learn to Sew video. And today I'm going to show you how to sew together a princess seam. Princess seams give you a great fit, but they can be a little bit tricky to sew because you are sewing together two really differently shaped lines of fabric. And with a few little tips and tricks, you'll get a great finish, and so this can be something you add to your sewing repertoire if you've never tried it before. Here I have my bodice front pieces and my bodice back, just one of my bodice back pieces. And this is the side bodice back and the side bodice front. And on the main bodice pieces, I have stitched the edge. You can see that here and also here. Now the pattern should tell you to do this. Stay stitching is permanent. It's not meant to be cut off, and it is inside the seam allowance. So on a 5/8 seam allowance, a garment with 5/8 seam allowance, you would stay stitched at 1/2 inch. And on a garment that has a 1/2 inch seam allowance, you would stay stitched at 3/8. So this particular garment has a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so I have stitched a line of stitching along this seam line, or inside this seam, I should say, at 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to start with the bodice back piece. The bodice back usually has a little less of a curve to it, and so I find it's easier to stitch that first, so that's a good one to start with. So the first thing you want to do is match up your notches. So I've found those, and if you pin with the pin head to the outside and the point going in towards the garment, you will be able to then stitch at your machine from either side and still be able to pull your pins out easily. I don't always remember that, but I try to. So I'm then going and pinning the bottom edge. This part is usually easy to pin together because you don't have as much curve to it. Now at the other end, this particular garment has 2 dots, and I'm going to match this pattern, 2 dots. And the reason that's important is you'll notice that the edges do not match up, and they're not supposed to. So pay attention to that if you have one that's going into the armhole, as this is. Now, as you can see, this edge seems to be longer than this one. It isn't actually, but that is kind of how it's because of the shaping. So what you want to do at this point is kind of evenly separate the excess fabric. Although you want to err, I'm putting more down towards the body because that's where you want the fullness. Okay. And I'm just putting in some pins. You're going to be clipping into that seam allowance, but I do that at the machine. I don't do it now, because you'd be surprised at the machine. You probably need to clip less than you think you do if you started clipping now. So there I have my back all pinned together. So now for my front, I'm going to do the exact same thing. But the front, as you can see, has more shaping to it because, of course, that's where we need more shaping. So again, I'm going to begin by matching up those notches. And then pinning my bottom edge. and my 2 dots. And then again, you can see there's quite a bit of difference here. There you see how much the one seems to be bigger than the other. But again, I'm kind of splitting it evenly. And then again, splitting it evenly. And one thing that's important to notice is the whole goal of this print of a princess seam is to give you the shape where you need it. So the pieces are going to shape around, so they're not going to lie flat down here, and they don't need to. You only have to get it to lie flat where you're actually going to be stitching. And so I'll show that to you as we go over to the machine. So I'm here at my machine. I have it set for regular stitch length. I'm using my all-purpose foot, but I have turned it into a free arm setup, so I can use this shape here to help me as I'm stitching this curve. So I'm going to begin. I'm stitching a 1/2 inch seam allowance because that's what my pattern calls for, and I'm going to back tack. And then just slowly stitch, and I'm making sure that my edges are lined up. And you'll notice I'm not taking those needles out until I get right up to them. I want to keep the fabric evenly distributed, so I don't want the excess shifting down to the next needle. And I don't think I'm going to have to clip at all on this one. And this is the back, which has less curve to it. If you were doing this and you needed to clip, that would be fine. Let's take a look. There's a nice, I know it's hard to tell with my dots, but there is a nice smooth seam, no puckers, and that's going to give a really nice finish. All right, let me show you how to do the front, because I will have to clip on that one. Okay, again, I'm starting at the top of the garment. I'm back tacking, and I'm not removing my pin until I'm right up to it. Now this part I'm going to have to clip. And my top, I know that because my top part is just bigger than the bottom right here, and if I keep sewing, I'm going to end up with a little tuck right here by the pin, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do as I hope you can see, I'm just pushing this out of the way, the top, and I'm going to clip right up to, but not through, that stitching, the stay stitching. And it's just going to open it up a little bit. And I do that until, I hope you can see how it opens up, till the two pieces are even. And if they're not, I give it another clip. Okay, and now they are. I can feel that they're lying flat. Now, they're not lying flat over here, but it doesn't matter if they're flat over here. They only need to be flat where I'm actually stitching. Right up to that pin, and now I'm going to see again, do I need to clip down here? And I don't. So I'm just going to keep working my way around that curve to the next pin. The end. So I only ended up having to make 2 clips. And of course, every time you clip, it does, weaken the seam a little bit. So the stay stitching is there to protect it, but you don't want to go crazy. I'm here at the ironing board, and as I explained, the whole point of a princess seam is to put shape in the garment. So we don't want to press that shape out at the ironing board. So I'm pressing on my ham. I'm just using the tip to first press the seam flat, because you always want to do that. And then I'm going to press the seam open. And the fabric I'm using here is a polyester fabric, so I might have a little trouble pressing the seam flat. It's not like a nice crisp cotton that likes to lie flat, but that's okay. And I think you can see, let's get the shape over here a little bit better. I'm using the shape of the ham to allow me to press a curve into this this garment. And now I'm going to turn it over, and I think you can see I've got just a really nice shape with this princess seam. And this is the back. Okay, there it is. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the front, which has, like I said, more curve to it. Again, just get the edge. And then you want to press the seam open. And you'll see, if you didn't notice before, but this particular pattern also has a dart in it. It has, which is kind of unusual, but it has both a princess seam and a dart. Going along there. And when you come to the part that has more of a curve, find the part of your ham that has a similar curve. So you can get it pressed, you know, with that curve built in. That's the whole purpose of the ham. And there we go. Okay, very pretty princess seam, which I think you can see has some nice shape to it. So I hope this video has been helpful. Remember to subscribe to my channel and sign up for the newsletter. I send out a monthly newsletter just of sewing tips and hints and great sewing finds around the web. So I'm going to link in the show notes to where you can do that, but make sure to sign up for that newsletter and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button if you want to be notified about more upcoming videos. And happy sewing!